Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Rockies Daily Show. I'm your host, Scott Ayers, where we talk all things Colorado Rockies, and we've got some news today. I say news, it's probably more rumors than news, but I do think it's worth talking about. So, Rockies have been mentioned in the Willie Castro sweepstakes, and sweepstakes might be doing a little legwork there, but I do think this is an important thing to talk about. The Rockies have a ton of needs across the board: infield, outfield, pitching. We mentioned the guy who fills up the Gatorade probably needs to be replaced. But this is actually an important thing to talk about because Willie Castro fits a lot of needs. He's the ultimate utility player who can play second, third, short, outfield, and could be a really nice fit for the Rockies. Castro was an all-star in 2024 with the Minnesota Twins. 2025, he had a down year when he was traded to the Cubs, and so he's looking for a new home, and Colorado could be a really nice fresh start. His OPS isn't going to scream at you. It fluctuates anywhere from 680 to 750, so it's nothing too crazy. His batting average is around 250, but I do think this would be a really nice fit for the Rockies. They need defense in the infield, and this is a guy who would bring just that. On top of that, he fills anywhere on the infield. So we know Tovar dealt with some injury last year, and truthfully, there aren't too many position guys that are guaranteed a spot in 2025. This is a guy that would just bring a lot of certainty to a lineup that definitely needs it. Another name to also look at is Paul Goldschmidt. Now, Charlie Condon should be brought up in either 26 or 27. He's one of the Rockies' top prospects. He'll most likely take over the first baseman duties. But until then, you need someone that can kind of carry that torch. And I think Paul Goldschmidt is a really interesting name to keep your eye on because he's getting a little bit older. He obviously doesn't have that same pop in his bat or anything like that, but could be a really nice fit for both 2026 and possibly 2027. You really would only need him for 1 or 2 years before, obviously, your new young guys come in and step up. So Goldschmidt fits that. He could then go off, do whatever he wants to do in retirement. But I do think someone like Paul Goldschmidt, Josh Bell, those are the kind of guys that you'll see the Rockies maybe target. They might not take anyone at all, which would also be understandable, but I do think that makes a lot of sense right now for the Rockies. But more importantly, back to Willie Castro, an infielder that could bring some much needed depth. Is obviously exciting to see who the Rockies are targeting. Josh Burns could be kind of his first big move as the GM for the Rockies. So with that, we're going to obviously keep our eyes on that. We're in the middle of winter meetings. There's probably going to be more things that come up. But until then, keep your eye on Willie Castro because he could become the next Colorado Rocky. Obviously, let's move on because the Rockies, 2025 was not good for the starting rotation. In fact, it was the worst rotation in baseball, ERA-wise. They were also bottom 10 all-time when it comes to a starting rotation. So there's a lot to be had with this team. On top of that, there aren't complete guarantees anymore. German Marquez is gone. Antonio Senzatella is moving to the bullpen. Right now, I would say you have about 2 guarantees that are going to start next year for the Rockies: Kyle Freeland, Ryan Feltner. Those are probably the 2 locks. Then you obviously have Tanner Gordon, Chase Dollander. You got Griffin Herring from that Ryan McMahon trade, and the Rockies just signed John Brebbia. We're still a couple months away for what this rotation might look like, and you could see different moves being made. We've talked about Brenton Doyle being a potential guy that could be traded for starting pitching down the road. But until then, until we see some sort of trades happen, we just have to roll with what we've got in front of us. And what's in front of us isn't anything that's going to blow people away. However, there are a couple of promising prospects. I know Dollander struggled. I know Gordon struggled. And Feltner had his struggles, but those are 3 names that you look at and you say, hey, I want to see them continue to pitch in 2025 or 2026 because there could be something there. That is something that the Rockies actually have had success in, is building from within. It's why they had success in 2018 and then went through this kind of dark period of 3 straight 100 lost seasons. But that's why you bring in, a new head of baseball operations and a new GM, is to study what pitchers will work, what pitchers won't work. Part of seeing what will work and what won't work is test on what you have right now. So young guys who struggled, that's expected. John Brebbia, who we'll talk about here momentarily, is another name, and it might be just that, a name, but it is something to consider. So the starting rotation, obviously, is probably the biggest concern for Rockies fans across the board, and it will be a concern going into 2026. There's just too many holes in that ship by the size of cannonballs that you just can't fix in a season, especially when you're in the rebuild phase. So it's probably going to be a little bit grim on the starting rotation side of things to start next season, but I do think there can be some silver linings to build in the future moving forward. So look at potential trade targets as the best way for Rockies to get talent there. I just don't see too many free agents signing with the Rockies, especially just with the struggles that pitchers have had at Coors Field, which lets us move on, obviously, to the free agent signings. The Rockies have actually signed 2 guys, both to minor league contracts. The first, obviously, we'll mention is John Brebbia, who just a couple years ago was great. He was pitching great in the MLB, but in the last couple seasons, he's really, really struggled. And then last year, with the Braves, he had a 7 ERA. He just did not have that much in the tank anymore. In the previous season with the White Sox, it was a 6 ERA. And this is, a season before where he was pitching an under 4 ERA, right? He still had a lot left in the tank just a couple seasons ago. He's on a minor league deal, and he is the classic swan song of Rockies free agent pitchers who they just love going after guys like LaTroy Hawkins-esque, right? Guys who are on the tail end of their career who are looking for one more shot. Colorado's the perfect landing spot, and I wouldn't be surprised if Brebbia can even be halfway decent in the minors if they bring him up just to fill that need at the starting position, or starting pitcher position. End of rotation guy that will give you a few starts here and there. The Rockies also signed infielder Nicky Lopez, who has had probably one good season in his MLB career. Other than that, he's been really just a name. He just isn't going to be much for the Rockies, but I think he looks at Mickey Manayak and goes, hey, if he had success, maybe I can have success as well. I get the signing for the Rockies. You take a chance on a guy who looked promising at one point. Last year, he did absolutely nothing. Was really in the minors for most of last year. But again, this is a signing where the Rockies say, let's take a chance. Maybe he can be something. Maybe he won't. It doesn't really hurt either way, right? You're not paying big bucks for a guy like Nicky Lopez. But these are the kind of signings that we might see for the offseason for the Rockies until they start to figure out what will make sense in building this core. And we talk about building the core, right? Because the real question is, who is the core of the Colorado Rockies? Who are the guys that we hope to see as really the building pieces moving forward? I think right now there's 2 names that are the core of the Colorado Rockies, and that's Hunter Goodman and that's Ezequiel Tovar. I think those are the 2 guys that you have to build around if you're the Rockies. Tovar obviously won the Golden Glove in 2024. Hunter Goodman, the Silver Slugger in 25. Goodman was unbelievable last year. Nearly had 100 RBIs. He smashed the crap out of the baseball, and he brings much needed power. He brings a ton of certainty at the catcher position, and overall, he's probably one of the brightest spots the Rockies have had in quite some time. Tovar struggled in 25. He missed a lot of time. But overall, still, I would say one of the best hitters in this lineup, and defensively is typically great, right? He won that Golden Glove in 2024 before obviously just having his struggles, mainly just trying to stay on the field in 2025. These are the 2 guys that I really think you should build around. And I don't necessarily believe that there should be, players that you just won't trade at any cost. But these are the two guys that are pretty high up there. It would take, I think, a pretty big deal to trade either one of them. And you would really have to consider if it makes sense. Tovar's only 24 years old. Goodman's only 26. These are young guys that make sense to build around because of just the ways that they've played in the last couple of seasons. I want to include Brenton Doyle on this list as well. Brenton Doyle has also been one of just the really exciting players that the Rockies have had in the last couple of years, but his name just keeps swirling in these trade talks. And so because of that, and just because of what the Rockies might be trying to do in terms of a rebuild, I do see a possibility where he gets dealt in the next couple of months or at the trade deadline. That is still yet to be seen. But for Tovar and Goodman, just with everything that they bring, it just doesn't make sense to deal these guys. In fact, you want to build around them. And that's also what gets fans coming back, is to actually have a player that you've watched and cheered for more than a couple of seasons before getting dealt, right? That's a big aspect in it too, is you also want to make sure that the fans love the players that you're putting out there each and every single day. So build around Goodman, build around Tovar, and let's start to see an actual rebuild here moving into 2026. Obviously, we're still in the middle of winter meetings. We're still seeing who the Rockies could be targeting for both now and in the future. And hopefully 2026 can be signs of what's to come for the Rockies. But obviously, until then, I'm Scott Ayers. If you like this video, make sure to hit the like button. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one. Until tomorrow, I'll see you then.